There's reality and there's sort of ambition and desire or your dream, right? And I think you can pursue both, but it's just a question of finding the balance at the right time. And sometimes you have to take a step backward to move forward also, right? And that's the way I was thinking about it, is I would go find a job for maybe a year or two while still trying to build my side hustle. It was not that I had closed that door on my dream of building a company and being on my own. It was just I saw this as a temporary setback, is the way I thought about it, right?
Yeah.
But and sometimes doors closing are a blessing in disguise, right?
Friends, welcome to Keep On Pushing Stories, where we share with you absolutely real life stories of persistence, perseverance, determination. We really take a deep dive into the mindset of people who have pushed past their obstacles and stepped out of their comfort zone. And today I am really excited to welcome my friend Nikhil Vaish to the show. Nikhil, welcome to Keep On Pushing Stories.
Devon, thank you. It's an honor to be here and to speak with you today.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here. So we always start this way. We ask people what it is that they do, how do they serve? How do you, Nikhil, bring value to the lives of others?
So I'm a solopreneur, and I know that, like myself, many solopreneurs sort of struggle to stand out in crowded markets. They typically know what they're good at. They have a lot of expertise and knowledge, but they have a hard time articulating their value and that expertise to their ideal market, right? To their ideal clients. So that's where Boost Solo comes in. We help solopreneurs uncover their unique story and then transform that into a powerful sales engine. So using my 30 years of global brand building experience at agencies like Ammirati, Ogilvy, Publicis, working on brands like IBM, Unilever, Citigroup, I've created something called the Brand Boost System. And it's basically a 9-week personalized coaching program through which I help solopreneurs craft a compelling brand narrative that will help them attract their ideal clients, build loyalty, and drive growth. And the way I think about it is your story is your most valuable asset, right? If you can activate that, then everything else sort of falls into place.
Indeed. So if there was a solopreneur out there, Nikhil, who really would need your help to define their brand and attract their ideal market, how would they find you?
So you can find me, boostsolo.com is the website you can go to. And there are links to set up. I offer free strategy sessions. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Nikhil Vaish on LinkedIn. So those are 2 ways to reach out to me directly.
Indeed. All right. Thank you for sharing that with us. So most important question, I guess, is we would love to hear your Keep On Pushing story. We'd love to hear of a time when you had to overcome a significant hurdle or push out of your comfort zone. So please do share with us.
So funnily enough, Boost Solo, this company that I just started last year, was born out of a Keep On Pushing story. So it was actually born out of hardship. So after I left the agency world in 2008, I started co-created a startup, a technology and consulting company that worked with early stage startups. Did that for about 5 or 7 years, and then my business partner and I decided to go separate ways. Then I started consulting, and that was great. Business was fantastic all the way through the pandemic. 2020, 2021 were really good years for me. And then something happened in 2022. I don't know what it was, but it felt like all the tectonic plates, all the steady sources of business and agencies and customers that I work with, they just seemed to disappear, or the business seemed to dry up. And in 2023, I'd always told my wife, if this consulting thing doesn't work out, I'll go back and get a job, no problem. I tried. 2023, I started applying to corporations. I must have sent in like somewhere between 70 and 100 resumes. I got one response. And that's when I started doing a little bit of digging, and I realized that 2 things had happened, right? One is recruitment now went through something called the ATS, the applicant tracking system, which means algorithms were deciding if your resume got to a human being or not. And the second problem, the bigger one, was ageism. I had just turned 50 right after the pandemic, and I realized that that was sort of a cutoff. Any resume with more than 15 years experience was immediately thrown out, which is why I couldn't even get to meet a person, right? Knowing that a lot of these jobs that I applied to were, I was a fit for, I had the experience for. So that's when I kind of realized I could either sit and cry about how unfair the world was, or I could pivot, right? And having been on this solopreneur journey before the word existed for the last, almost decade, I decided that this was an audience that I wanted to serve. And that's kind of what led to the birth of Boost Solo. And, having walked in their shoes, I'm sort of designing this system to help them in ways that are real and not academic.
Yeah. So it sounds like, without trivializing your experience, turning lemons into lemonade kind of story.
Yeah, I guess you could call it that, right? Because brand building is my passion. And also, this is something that I'm doing myself. So it's almost like in real time, you're getting sort of the knowledge and the experiences that I've had over the last 7 or 8 years, the trials and tribulations of building a business as a solo person, in terms of, the benefit that I bring to people who are on this journey.
Yeah. So let's step back a little bit,
Yeah.
Nikhil, because you started out on your solopreneur journey, and you told your wife, "Look, if this consulting thing doesn't work out, I'll get a job." And business started to take a downward spiral. What was that a difficult move for you to start sending out resumes again?
Yeah, it's not something I wanted to do, honestly. I did not have any desire to go back to the corporate world, having left it for a number of good reasons. I mean, I have nothing against it. It was just not the path I wanted to follow, right? But, Con Ed doesn't, wait around for you to pay their bills. So
Yeah.
you still have to, reality is still reality. So that's something I knew at the back of my mind I would force myself to do if I had to do it. So yeah, that's kind of the step I took, was out of necessity rather than out of desire, if you like.
Force yourself to do it because you had to. It sounds like something that people who are committed to their goals and moving forward sometimes have to do, the things that you don't really want to do. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think you have to always balance those two things, I think, right? There's reality and there's sort of ambition and desire or your dream, right? And I think you can pursue both, but it's just a question of finding the balance at the right time. And sometimes you have to take a step backward to move forward also, right? And that's the way I was thinking about it, is I would go find a job for maybe a year or two while still trying to build my side hustle. It was not that I had closed that door on my dream of building a company and being on my own. It was just I saw this as a temporary setback, is the way I thought about it, right?
Yeah.
But and sometimes doors closing are a blessing in disguise, right? So I don't think you can ever necessarily build a company while doing it part time, right? So this forced me to just take the plunge 110% and and then organize my life around being able to make it a reality, right? Which I
Yeah.
potentially wouldn't have done if I'd gone and gotten a corporate job and then sort of gotten comfortable again, even if I didn't love it, with the security and the paycheck and all of that. So
Indeed. So to go back to the turning lemons into lemonade, here it is that you've sent out dozens of resume. You got one response, and now I guess you're faced with the choice of continuing to send out more resumes or start looking more seriously and being more committed to starting your own business. So people, will be on a journey similar to yours, where they have a goal, they're trying to balance the reality, as you say, with the ambitions. What is the mindset you think you had, and what mindset would you recommend to someone to develop in those situations?
So I did decide last year to stop sending out resumes because I realized it was futile. I mean, the whole system is sort of rigged against, the ageism is definitely a problem. And also it batters your self-confidence, right? Every time you get a rejection, it doesn't matter what you've done or where you've been, you will still feel like there may be something wrong with me. So I don't think that route makes sense anymore, for unless you're sort of starting out. Soft introductions make more sense. But also I realized that's not what I really wanted to do at this stage in life, right? So honestly, it was just sort of shifting my mindset to saying that, okay, this is the path I want to follow. And now how do I make it a reality? Obviously, ensuring that, there's some financial stability. So for example, I'm still doing some consulting, right?
Mhm.
To pay the bills, to supplement my income, to make sure that while I build Boost Solo, there is some sort of security, if you like, while I do that. But I'm not at all looking for a full-time job anymore. I've stopped sending out resumes. So it's really consulting to supplement and grease the wheels, if you like, while I build Boost Solo and turn it into a full-time business and revenue generator. Did I answer
Indeed.
your question?
Yeah, yeah. Well, let me ask you, what would you say is the biggest lesson or a couple of lessons that you have taken away from this experience?
Well, I think there are two things. One is that it's not you, right? So for the longest time, I first sat there thinking, okay, is there something wrong? Is there something I'm doing wrong or something I could do differently when I was sending out those resumes? And my research, when I started actually digging into it, I spoke to recruiters, I started to understand the new landscape, and I realized it wasn't me. There was nothing wrong with my experience or what I was bringing to the table, but the factors and the environment had changed, if you like, right, in terms of
Mhm.
what people were looking for. And there was a mismatch now, for better or for worse. So I think that's one lesson. And I think that's a really valuable lesson as a solopreneur too, because I always say, like, when you're working on an IBM or Citigroup, you're selling a product. It's not personal. If someone says, oh, no, I don't want to buy that solution, you're like, okay. But as a solopreneur, anyone who turns you down or rejects you, it feels very personal. So I think
Mhm.
that lesson has great value in terms of this journey too, of not taking things personally and understanding sometimes things just don't fit the right way for a number of different reasons that don't necessarily have to do with you, right? So I think that was sort of the big lesson.
It's not you, it's the environment, and then figuring out a way to pivot as you
Yeah.
did. W- What advice, how would you encourage, or if you're coaching someone to who find themselves in a similar situation, the landscape has changed and they need to change as well. How would you advise them to move forward?
So I would say first thing is lean on your expertise, right? Don't just go off and say, okay, I'm going to now start designing jeans if that's not something you've ever done, right?
Right.
That just doesn't make any sense. So think about the experiences that you've had and sort of the core expertise that you have. And the second piece, perhaps even more important, is figure out the audience that needs that. And that's really important. That's a large part of what we do in the Brand Boost program is teach you how to identify the niche audience. Because most people's instinct is, let's just throw stuff out there and see what sticks. That's
Mhm.
not a good way to go about succeeding or building a business. It's really identifying the person that you want to talk to and the problem that you will help them solve based on your expertise and the experience that you bring, right? So I think those are really the two fundamental factors, if you like, in terms of mindset shift and in making that pivot and sort of taking the leap.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, mindset shift, pivoting, because we do live in an environment, a world that is ever changing. The landscape is ever shifting. And when you find yourself in those caught up in the winds of change, as it were, yes, you absolutely have to pivot because it's not really you that's the problem per se, but the solution lies within you, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Well put. And the thing I would add now is that, our father's generation, they had to work in one place, right? That was sort of the path that they had.
Mhm.
The opportunity to do what I'm doing and what a lot of others want to do has never been greater, right? Again, as I said, you have to make that mindset safe. You still have to have that focus, but the tools, the opportunities, the markets, the access that we have, I don't think we've ever had before in history, right? So I think the timing is great to be able to do something like this.
Yes, indeed. And the timing for a story like yours is absolutely great as well, Nikhil. Thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with us. Your experiences, your life is definitely an example of that. Keep on pushing philosophy, mentality that we speak about. I know that others are going to benefit from your story. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me, Devin. It's been a real pleasure, and thank you for letting me share my story with the audience.
Indeed. And guys, if you enjoyed this, if you found it valuable, yes, drop us a like. But just as importantly, make sure you share this with someone who you think would benefit. Make sure you come back for more amazing, inspiring stories like this one. Until then, keep on pushing.